Dame tu mano y venga conmigo. Vámonos al viaje para buscar los sonidos mágicos de Ecuador.
Yes, it's another edition of the 41 Jobs podcast, South of the Border International edition. We're going to talk to my buddy J-Mac, who's been a missionary and has lived out of the country when he was younger and still strives to be a missionary in certain places. We're going to talk about those places and get a good view of what it's like being in Mexico and Ecuador and other countries doing missionary work and how that is being an American in those countries, and just talk about what he thinks about cultural issues and how it relates to what we think are important issues in the United States today. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Hey, pretty good. We can just get on right in it, but now you are a son of missionaries, correct?
I am, yes.
Okay, and how early did you guys go to your first location, and where'd you go?
Yeah, well, it started before I was born. Both my mom and dad lived on the Texas-Mexico border. So they were there for 5 years. They got married on the border. My older brother and sister were born there. And then they moved to Michigan, where I ended up being born. We lived in Michigan, and then when I was 13, my older brother and sister went to college, and parents came to me and said, hey, we want to go back to the mission field. We didn't know where at the time, but eventually settled on Ecuador, down in South America. And so end of eighth grade the second semester of eighth grade year, we moved down to Costa Rica. We went to a small language school there meant for missionaries to learn Spanish. And I did eighth grade year, summer of eighth grade, and then first semester of my freshman year of high school in Costa Rica. Then we moved to Ecuador after that, and I did from second semester of ninth grade all the way to the summer of my senior year in Ecuador, Cuenca, Ecuador.
Wow. So that's cool. I mean, I didn't realize you went to that many places. I knew you went to Ecuador, but I didn't know I forgot about Costa Rica and all that stuff. So what did you think being a kid, kind of growing up in and out of the country and in a foreign country? What was it to you? Was it just something you were used to, or did you think it was weird, or what did you think of it?
Well, I didn't really know what to expect. Costa Rica it was really a good buffer because I was still surrounded by Americans in a third world country of Costa Rica. So school was pretty much the same. I played on the basketball team just like I did in the States and everything else, but you go out to the city and everyone's speaking Spanish. So that 9 months, as an eighth grader was a good transition period. Then going straight to Ecuador, I went from that support group or support system to we were living in Cuenca, which is close to, last I checked, around 1 million people. And I was the only American in our entire neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
So I had one friend in our church, Christian, who had taught himself English by watching movies and listening to American music. Super smart kid. Just liked the English, wanted to learn English. So he was, for my first year, he was really the only one I could communicate with. Even though I went to language school, I was still a student. So I was still taking, your math and your science and your U.S. history and writing and everything else that you do as a student. And then only 1 hour a day, I actually studied Spanish. And it was a full immersion. The teacher spoke no English. And even though I spoke about 3 words of Spanish, we had to only speak Spanish in that classroom. So I did that for 9 months. When I got to Ecuador, I sounded like a toddler. I didn't know how to say anything past tense. But being the person that I am, I love interacting with people and always been able to fall back on sports. So, being a young high school kid, I would just grab my basketball. They do play basketball in Ecuador. So I'd grab my basketball and go down to the court. And I learned the Spanish words, the Spanish basketball words, probably quicker than almost any other vocab words that I learned. How to pass, shoot, set a screen, and then same with soccer, obviously, as well. So it was definitely a unique experience. I'm for those who don't know, I'm 6'2", big guy, very white, blonde hair, blue eyes. So I stick out incredibly when I'm in the Andes Mountains, surrounded by, dark hair, dark skin, dark eyes, people who are, at most maybe 5'7". The guys might be 5'6", 5'7". They're all very, mountain people tend to be on the smaller side. So I stuck out anywhere I went, even as a 15, 16-year-old. So in a lot of ways, that kind of felt like what I imagined being like a movie star or, someone famous feels like, just walking around being stared at all times. People would come up, want to take pictures with me.
Awesome.
They would ask me questions about the U.S. left and right. So it was definitely a unique and weird experience that I really only share with other like missionary kids or third culture kids who've been through it before. It's really hard to explain what that's like otherwise.
Oh, I bet it was just, I can't imagine what it's like. I would feel, I don't know, I would feel really, I don't know, I'd be scared, and I'm not sure what I would think, but it sounds like to me you took it in well and learned from your experiences. It sounds like it was a great experience for you.
It really was. Yeah. I loved it. And it always worked that I knew my senior year I would go back. So it didn't seem like a permanent, like I'm done, I'll never see my friends again. It was more like a 3-year-long trip that I was taking with my parents. So because of that, they had a finality to it. So it was more like a long excursion that I was along for the ride. But yeah, I have nothing but positive experiences. And when I look back on it, it's all great times for the most part.
Yeah, like when you played basketball, were you like, were you a lot better than everybody else because you were from the Midwest?
Oh, yeah.
Or I bet you were.
Yeah. So in fact, as a 15-year-old, I played semi-professional on a semi-pro team.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So I was one of the only guys over 6 foot, and I was playing pickup, and my coach of our high school team said, "Hey, there's a semi-pro team. You can come and play for them. There's tryouts." And I went and, tried out, and they liked me. And for about 6 months, I traveled with the team, semi-pro. If we won the tournament, we got paid. If we didn't, the sponsor covered all expenses. So I was 15, surrounded with a bunch of men playing semi-pro basketball. Then I come back to the States and realize, I'm actually not that good. I was just taller than everybody else.
That would be awesome. I don't know if I'd ever want to leave Ecuador if I was on a semi-pro basketball team.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
Fun. Yep.
So how far did you guys travel on your semi-pro team?
Well, so Ecuador as a country is about the size of Colorado.
Okay.
So we would go. We never flew. We would always take the bus, or different people would drive. But we would go to different provinces. So I think the furthest was like a 4-hour trip from up in the mountains down to the coast in Guayaquil, this coastal city. And down there were some pretty big guys. There were 6'7", 6'8" guys down there.
Jeez.
Just because it's a coastal town. So that was probably the most fun trip, just bussing down, bussing back. Everything's covered by the sponsors. Yeah, it was a pretty good time.
Neat. Did you do well on those trips and play against the big guys? Did you do well?
I did. Yeah. I would like to think I did.
Yeah.
The other fun part of South America and Spanish basketball in general, they play 2-3 zone exclusively.
Okay.
So I would make my bread and butter as it's called the dunker position, if you know basketball, but the one close to the rim.
Okay.
Let the power forward get it at the free throw line. He'd dump it to me. I had that short corner, 10, 15-foot jumper that I can make, or I would stretch it to the 3-point line and get some threes up that way as well.
Did they use the international line and all that? Did they?
Oh, yeah.
Ecuador?
Yep.
Okay.
So the line, it's a little bit further than high school, but not as far as college or pros.
Yeah, the NIT was unfortunately, I've been watching IU and the NIT. That lasted 3 games. But I was looking at that line. It's not that far off, but it's just enough to be off. And then they have that. Does college and the NBA have that circle in the middle of the key? Because I think it does. I noticed that too, but I know that's
the black
different.
charge circle.
I didn't really notice it used to be in the Olympics. It used to be kind of a diagonal lines from the key to the baseline. I didn't notice that in the NIT.
Trapezoid.
I didn't really notice that too much in the NIT keys. I don't know if that was I didn't watch closely enough to the key to see if that was an issue, but that's really cool that you played semi-pro.
Yeah.
That's so neat. Oh, that's awesome. That's cool that your parents let you do that and then ride through the mountains. And I'm envisioning movies I've seen where you're riding this rickety bus over mountains and you almost die and roll down the mountain. It wasn't that bad, was it?
Well, you're not too far off. The bus was up to date. The
Okay.
mountains are, it's, it's one way, both ways sort of thing. And at some
geez.
points there's mudslides where you just can't go down that way. You got to find another route, or, the rocks have fallen from higher up. I mean, you're 11,000 feet up, you look over and there's a 4,000 foot drop. So,
Oh my goodness.
But when you grow up in it, it's as normal as, driving through cornfields here.
Wow.
It's just part of life.
When I went to Italy a couple of years ago, and the guy that's our driver's taking us up up and down the mountains from Naples to where we were staying, I was freaking out. It was so scary. And they were driving so fast, and there was hairpin turns, and they don't have guardrails like we do in the United States. And you didn't,
Right.
I mean, there might be a brick wall that's 2 foot high. I'm like, that's not going to keep a Mercedes, kind of like large van from staying on the road. It was scary. I was pretty scared, but I'm not used to that. So
right. There was one time where riding in the back of a pickup truck, is a very common mode of transportation. So there was one tournament we went to, and there were 6 of us in the back of the pickup truck. So if you think in a bus is scary because you can look out the window, it's even more so when you just look over the side of the bed, and the drop is right there. Just trust the driver to get you there safely. But I'm still here, so thankfully we never had any issues.
Okay. So as a young kid and, in your teen years, what was your role as a missionary kid, or you just lived life? Did you help your parents do missionary work, or?
Kind of maybe vicariously.
Okay.
I didn't really have a role necessarily. I was just, my job was to do school. But by the nature of being someone who loves sports and loves connecting with people and talking, I would go out and play soccer, for example, and then come, afterwards I'd invite the kids I played with back to our house, and we'd have, I had my Xbox 360. I taught them Halo 3, or we would play FIFA, and then eventually their parents would come to pick them up, and my parents then would get a chance to talk to their parents, and some of them, wanted to know what we were doing, and so they'd use that time to talk about, the church that we started, and then they started coming to the church that way. I wasn't necessarily out with that idea in mind, but kind of that's how I fell into helping grow the work that we were doing down there.
That's something you really get a bad idea what missionary work is if you watch TV and you watch shows and you see these missionaries trying to force religion on people. That's not even close to what it really is. From what you've explained to me, even before when we've talked, that's a lot. I think that's a really neat way of missioning to people, is doing what you guys do. I didn't realize it was that way, and I think that's really cool that you guys do it that way. And that's kind of how life is in general. I mean, people start connecting and doing things with you just by talking and getting more warm to each other and wanting to talk about more, and then start opening the conversation to other things that might concern things like that. And I think that's really neat. That's really cool that's the way they did it.
Yeah. So we took a very holistic approach. My mom as a counselor and my dad as a pastor, we want to go and help these people. And sometimes it's, cook a bowl of soup and invite the family over, and we'd go up and watch a movie and my parents could talk to them. And other times it's counseling sessions, around a cup of coffee late at night with people, and all the way down to, people would come to us to help learn English or teach them English so that they would be more qualified for a job that they were going for.
Oh, cool.
So really we were just there to help out in any manner of ways, to, be a part of the community, not come in and force like the conquistadors did way back in the day.
Okay.
That was not our approach. We were here to be in the neighborhood, help people as much as possible, and do our work that way.
So those people that lived in the mountains of the Andes, what did they do? Like, what was what were basic jobs that they had, or what was basic things that they did every day that may be different than the United States? I mean, that you can think of, that you notice was a different cultural thing.
Yeah, so it's very unique. You had the city, which is Indianapolis size.
Okay.
And then we lived in, if that's in the basin of the town, so it's about 8,000